call this November 3rd, 2025 meeting of the OJRSA Board of Commissioners meeting to order. First up is invocation and pledge of allegiance led by Commissioner Celia Myers.
Father God, we just thank you for the safe travels here to this meeting. We thank you for the grace that you have poured out on us. We just ask that you continue to pour out your grace, your wisdom, your discernment, and that we use the gifts that you have given us, and that we do the best for the citizens and the visitors of Oconee County and for the sewer authority. Lord, we are very much aware that it is election season, that there is an election tomorrow, so we just pray for each and every candidate, their families, their friends, and that you will bless each one of them, and whoever is our new leaders, that you will bless them in that role, and you will bless the leaders that are here in this room today. We thank you, we love you, and it's in your Son's most precious hands we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll move on to item C, public session. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item D. Approval of minutes, Board of Commissioners meeting of October 6, 2025. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion, is there a second? We got a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on. Item E, committee and other meeting reports. Reconstitution Committee and Executive Committee meeting September 11th, as approved by the committee on October 9th. Kevin Bronson chair, that is me. We met about a month ago. I encourage you to read the minutes for the Reconstitution Committee as we keep progressing through the due diligence checklist that the previous ad hoc committee went through. I don't think there was anything that I was going to highlight in that other than to say that we continue to make progress and on that effort moving toward consolidation, and the next meeting will be November the 13th at 9 a.m. in this room. Next item, Operations and Planning Committee meeting of October 23rd. Mr. Scott Mulder.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be honest with you, it was a long meeting, and Lynn's hands were cramping by the end of it, trying to keep track of everything. So just going to hit just a couple of highlights. I certainly implore you to read through those minutes to get the more detailed. But we did get an update that clarifier number 3 was down, and as a means to prioritize the financial capital plan, Chris is recommending that we put one of those projects on hold, item number 17, in order to free up the funds for the repair to clarifier number 3. We also had a visit from Arbor Land Management, Mr. Austin, Mr. Stephen Wright were there. They were presenting not necessarily a request, I mean, I guess it was, but it was more of an idea submittal to the committee about the ability for large-scale developments. Large-scale obviously would be defined by us on what that looks like, but allowing those large-scale developments an opportunity to reserve capacity, basically recognizing that some of the bigger developments take a longer due diligence period of design and planning period, and during that time frame, especially in areas with limited capacity, they were concerned that the smaller project could come in, get their permitted capacity sooner, pay their impact fees, and thus eat up the capacity that would have been used for the larger development. So they were asking if there was a way that the board would be willing to put in place a large-scale development capacity reservation policy. There was, again, a lot of discussion on what that looks like. Chris had actually presented kind of I wouldn't say it's a draft, but just kind of a proposed scope of what that could or could not look like. And the committee discussed it. No decision was made. We were planning on picking that back up at the next committee meeting after some additional information, I think, was presented So again, I recommend you read through those minutes to get more detail. But again, the committee was somewhat in favor, I think. Let's say the discussions were positive, looking at some type of policy for a reservation. It was the scope and parameters that I think we still had a lot of questions about. We certainly understood the basis for the request. We also talked about the corrective action plans. Obviously, those reports were due, the updates were due, I think, yesterday, or no, today, one day, Friday, thank you. They were due. Chris had also talked about some of the other items in the corrective action plan as we go through discussions about this consolidation and feasibility study, reconstitution efforts, that the reports would still need to be due, but other demanded items of repair may need to just wait to give an opportunity for the current process to play out. And that was pretty much the bulk of the main topics of the meeting. Again, the majority of it was talking about that reservation of capacity. There would be a fee associated with that, of course, but again, there's still a lot to figure out there before we even bring anything back to the full commission. And obviously, the committee can answer any questions anybody has.
All right, any questions for Scott? All right, is there a motion?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as they are.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next item under E, Finance and Administration Committee meeting of October 28, 2025. Silly Myers.
Yes, sir, thank you. So the Finance and Administration Committee did meet on October 28th. It was actually one of our shortest meetings.
I leave the committee and they start
There
getting
you
short.
go, we
Is
got
that
them
why you
short.
looked at me?
Well, you had just said you were supposed to, I had a lengthy meeting. We did not beat the record though. It was the second shortest, I believe, is what we decided. Bulk of the time was spent on getting an update of current projects, including some additional projects using the uncommitted RA or SCIP funding, as well as reviewing the year-to-date and September financial reports. We also were reminded of the DES reports that were due last Friday, and we were given the update that we would have the audit presentation today. That was the bulk of the meeting. No action items other than the approval of the financial reports. And unless there's any questions, I'll make a motion to approve this minutes as they're written.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Would like to take just a moment to welcome Mr. Glenn Hart. Welcome.
Thank you.
We did public input session, but I always want to give you a chance to speak if you'd like.
I'm just here to observe.
All right, well, glad to have you here. Moving on to item F, Secretary Treasurer's Report. Lynn Stevens.
I need to back us up just 1 second. Can we approve or accept the reconstitution meeting minutes that were approved
I
by?
make a motion, we accept those as submitted.
We have a motion and a second. Any
Who was
further
second?
dis-
Okay.
McLean. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Lynn,
Thank
for
you.
keeping us honest. All right, now on to Secretary Treasurer's Report.
Okay, you have 2 pages for the Secretary Treasurer report. You will notice that page 2, I'm gonna go for the first, page 2 is corrected. It was, the one for, prepared for the October meeting. I deal with a spreadsheet for all the CDs, and it gets very frustrating and complicated at times when they're maturing, and you will notice that there's 2 highlighted numbers on the wholesale impact fund. And what this was 2 CDs were accounted for twice because they were in the bank account balance as well as it's still in my spreadsheet as a valid CD. So those are the corrected numbers. So bringing that down a little bit than what it was showing last month. And then the other thing is that Chris and I are trying to work on doing this a different way so we avoid any of these issues in the future. And maybe getting me away from that spreadsheet so I can track it somehow a different way. One of the things that I'm doing now is I'm gonna pay more attention to the bank website every day and see if I can keep up with it a little bit better there too when it's showing up as a deposit. So, but we're trying to find alternate ways to fix that problem. So that was last month's. Any question on that one?
Do you need us to, do we need to just share, approve that corrected?
I don't think it hurts, just in case our auditor ever get real nitpicky about things.
I heard they can.
Yeah.
So, I'll make a motion that we approve the corrected October 6th commission meeting secretary's report as presented in a corrected form today.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, Lynn, continue, please.
Okay, and the current one, in all the funds, cash and investments, we have a combined total of $12,141,411. You will notice in the days cash on hand that it reflects the budget amendment for the RO&M fund, which was the money that we refunded Oconee County, that Chris had that budget for. All the reconciliations have been done through September. I had finally gotten all 3 of the past reconciliation letters from Susan Spain's office. You all should have that because I emailed it out Friday, I think. And then we have 1 CD that's maturing towards the end of this month on the 28th from the O&M account that will be reinvested.
And if I may, since Mr. Hart's here, we will owe, as a settle up, the final settle up to Oconee County. How much? You don't need to know the exact amount, but
It was like 190.
so the Oconee County is going to be receiving 1 additional final check after we had our was it an investment?
Yeah,
Lynn?
yeah.
After it had matured, we'll be cutting a check to Oconee County, and it'll accompany a letter from the accountant stating that this will zero everything out with what the county had fronted for the Sewer South Phase 2 project grant. So that'll be coming, I guess, really any time now. We got the letter Friday, correct?
Yeah, I cut the check today, so.
Okay, so
It's in that.
okay, so that'll be sent off to the county this week.
All right. Lynn, did you have anything else for the board?
No, that's it.
All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the November 3rd secretary treasurer reports as submitted.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to item G. Presentation and discussion items. Presentation of the OJRSA fiscal year 2025 financial audit report. Mr. Jason White with Payne, White, and Schmutz. Did I say Schmutz correctly?
Schmutz.
Schmutz.
That's all right.
Well,
He's used to it.
that's not your last name, so
No.
we won't worry about that.
No.
All right. So you've given us copies of these, of your letter and the audit, Jason. Why
Yes.
don't you walk us through what you got?
Yes, thank you, Kevin. I do not have a copy of the letter, but let me just explain to you what that is. It should be in the front cover of your booklet. That's what's called a chargeable governance letter. So we're required to disclose to you any audit adjustments that we made, and then also provide to you what's called the management rep letter that's signed by Chris and Lynn and the representations that they made to us during the audit. If there's anything major in there, we would have talked about it before now, but again, it's more of a compliance thing. We've got to go through each of those sections, make sure we give you that verbiage in a separate letter. That's not a public document like the audit is. I mean, I don't think there's anything that doesn't need to be shared, but it is just for the decision makers of the board. So I want to make sure you guys have a copy of that. But if you are giving the audit out or sharing the audit with someone, that does not have to go with it. That's not a public document like the binder is. So I'm just going to go through briefly the audit report and then answer any questions y'all have. And I always encourage you, because it's a lot of information, if you don't have, if you come up with a question later, let me know. I'll be happy to answer it over the phone or in person as well. So the first thing that is we need to just touch on is what the auditor's opinion is. kind of similar to the CWG letter. If there was anything other than what's called an unmodified opinion, we would have talked about prior to now. An unmodified opinion, even though it doesn't sound like it, is the highest form of opinion you can receive. It's just basically telling the users of the financial statements, you can rely on the numbers that follow behind it. And that's, that opinion is detailed at the top of page 1. Then the rest of the wording there just describes the different types of sections of the report and the opinions issued on those. Something that's really useful, at least it's useful to me, I think it'd be useful to you as well, is the second section called the management's discussion and analysis. The reason this is useful is because governmental financial statements are notorious for getting into the weeds. There's just so much compliance and line items and detail to make sure that the financial statements are really compliant with generally accepted accounting principles and government auditing standards. And so this management's discussion analysis really just breaks down the numbers that eventually follow in the financial statements in narrative form. So you can kind of see some of the highlights and do some comparison of fiscal year 25 to 24 and 23, which you'll see beginning on page 4. And so I'm just going to touch on those. If you go back to page 3, the financial highlights, just the bullet point there was a large increase in net position. So net position is just basically assets less liabilities and what are called deferred inflows. So the net position increased by about 2.5 million or 7% over the prior year. Just keep in mind, we're looking at a snapshot. This is as of June 30. The numbers are different now. But for the fiscal year ending at that time, with all the activity going on, with construction and grants and monies from Oconee County and all that type of stuff, that was the results as of that fiscal year in June 30, 25. Operating revenues, increased by about 4% from the prior year, and operating expenses increased by about 2%. For the prior year. There, we're just trying to really isolate what does it cost to operate and what revenue are you bringing in to operate, exclusive of any grant activity. Page 4, which I mentioned before, just a comparison there of the current year and the previous 2 years. And you can see certainly since fiscal year 23, if you look at the total assets there, 4th line down on that chart, assets have increased substantially from just 2 years ago. There's no major debt, so that's great. The authority's in great financial position. Net position is the government term. And you can see the total net position there has increased significantly from fiscal year 23, just a result of all the growth and construction that's been going on. Page 5 is kind of what we talked about just a moment ago, just the operating revenues. And non-operating revenues there at the top. Comparison, current fiscal year and the 2 prior. The operating expenses there is kind of the middle section of that chart. And then net position, the bottom line on that chart is going to agree to the statement of net position we just looked at on the prior page. And you can see 3rd line up from the bottom on that chart there on the top chart on page 5. An increase of about 2.5 million, which we touched on in the financial highlights. Capital asset, well, everything. Capital assets, you're going to see the same trend. A lot of growth there. That's where the bulk of the increase in net position is coming from. There's a lot more infrastructure with the completion of Sewer South, or phase 2, I should say. So net capital assets is over 30 million. 2 years ago it was just under 17 million. Like I mentioned, there's no long-term debt, so we don't have any disclosures for that. I think we do say in here that there is no long-term debt. Once we get into page 6, I think through the rest of management discussion section through page 11, this is more informal. We kind of check off the boxes of what needs to be included in management's discussion by those comparison charts we just went over. And then the rest of this is more up to management of what should be included or what they wish to include. So there's some charts in there that show gallons treated, system flows, the breakdown of revenue on page 9. Again, it's just a summary of what you're going to see in the financial statements to follow. And then capital improvement activity, what actually occurred during the year, fiscal year 25 on page 10, and then what's projected to occur this fiscal year 26 that we're in on page 11. So a good summary. I think it's great to read through this, and then if you really want to get into the details, you can go through the financial statements that begin on page 12. Page 12 is just really an extrapolation of the charts we've already been over. Same numbers. We just went over more in condensed form in the management discussion. There's a few pages there, and then once we get to the notes on page 15, a lot of this is just compliance, making sure that all note disclosures that are required are included, that the users of the financial statements, if they have questions about capital assets, the changes there, the net pension liability from PIVA, health insurance benefits and the potential liability there, which is makes up the bulk of the notes. All the summaries and trends and ratios are included there that are required. Just providing a lot of detail of the numbers if the user, the financial statement, so wishes to delve into those. The last few pages of the report are what's called our report on internal control. Part of government audits require us to review the internal control by the authority, and so we issue a report there. There's no significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, or non-compliance that we noted, but we have to disclose that as well in the audit report. And that's done on page 38. Any questions?
I'll have one for
Yeah.
Chris, if you don't mind. What on page 4, were your assets, current assets was 7 million and they jumped up to 14 million? What happened?
I'm gonna assume that that's what I would think would be the Sewer South project,
Okay.
would be the significant.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is that,
in 14, you had 14.8 with construction in progress. So
Okay.
with all the, I'm assuming the consent order projects plus Sewer South, majority of that was in progress in 24 was added.
Okay, thank you.
You got one? I got
Yeah,
one.
I've got a question on page 5 in the MD&A.
Yep.
Forgive me being newer here, but
Yeah.
the salaries, wages, and employee benefits.
Mhm.
So it's 1.6 million in 23, 1.6 in 24, then it drops down to
Yeah.
623,000.
Man, it's just it's an unfortunate thing. Okay, so we talked about post-employment benefits.
Yes.
Which, revolve around health insurance, as you know.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the report that the actuaries prepared had about a $950,000 change to the good
Okay.
for health insurance or
Retirement.
the potential liability
For retirement.
yeah, for retirees
Okay.
in the future. So the actuaries actually changed the numbers by just under $1 million from last year, which all goes into fiscal year 25.
Yes.
So it's a non-cash adjustment that's basically reducing insurance expense. That insurance expense goes into salaries, wages, and employee benefits. So yeah, it stands out, but there's nowhere else for us to put it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we
So-
offer retirement health insurance benefits?
we do. We do.
Yeah, so that sticks out, and it's just one of those accounting things. We've got it in the notes, you know, if you want to look at the calculations, everything. All
Okay.
that. But, yeah, sorry, it's not great for comparison purposes.
Any other questions for Jason? Chris, you were going to comment?
Well, I'll wait till anyone else has any other questions. I just have a couple of comments, if I might. One is, when I was looking this over earlier today, I had the exact same question, so I called Jason and asked him the same thing. The next one is another part of the conversation we had when I was going through it. This is something, Lawrence, for you. And this is, if I can find it really quickly, in here, the bottom of page 12, the net position, unrestricted, in particular, the $9.6 million. The bulk of that is going to be the $6-ish million that we have in impact fees that we have collected, which, according to state statute, if I understand correctly, Lawrence, plus our policy is restricted. And we spoke about this today to see if next year he would be able to break this out to show that it is, you know, that we do have restrictions placed on those funds that have been collected. I don't know if there's anything that you may need from Lawrence, and this doesn't have to be today, but if it could be beneficial to help you with what you need to justify your breaking those apart.
Sure.
So that we can't show it that way next year.
Yeah, I mean, restriction by outside entity is the main thing that will get it separately stated. It'll be, or have a note disclosure for it. But things you do internally, like restrictions or money you set aside, wouldn't be under the restrictions. because
Right.
it's not from outside. But yeah, if there's a state law that says
So
you
yeah, it kind of wears both hats. So the
Yeah.
money has to be done for capacity-related improvements to the system. It can't be used for anything other than that.
Yeah.
So there's a policy that backs up and supports that
Yeah.
state level obligation.
Yeah.
So I
Could we
can,
just add it as a note to the financial statement somewhere that?
whichever way they wish to do it, I just, you know, we, as I mentioned earlier to Jason, like I explained to, we replace a 1 million gallon a day pump station with one that's going to be rated at 2 million gallons per day. From my understanding with the law and the policy, that we cannot use capacity fees that we've collected to pay for the replacement of the entire amount of that station. We can only use that for the growth component of that station to get from 1 million to 2 million gallons of it.
We probably just add something at the bottom there showing restricted for, you know, whatever term wants to be used, and then maybe add a note to that maybe would reference the state statute or whatever. Because I'm not familiar with where that is, but sure.
We can certainly justify it
Sure.
with whatever paperwork you need.
Yeah.
Just to
Yeah.
make sure you're comfortable.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's all, thank you.
Any further comments, questions? Jason, I know this takes a lot of work on your part, and we do appreciate that, as well as Chris, Lynn, and the rest of your staff. Everything that goes into putting all this together is, you come in, you spend 10 minutes breezing us through it, but we know you put a lot of work into it, so thank you very much for doing
Thank
that.
you all.
Is there a motion that we accept the audit as presented?
I'll make a motion, we accept this audit as presented.
We have a motion, is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. All right. Jason, you're welcome to join us for the rest of fun. We're also on YouTube.
That sounds good.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
y'all.
today.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Jason.
All right. Item number 2, update to master plan recommendations as provided to the Reconstitution Committee. Chris Elliott.
All right, thank you. First, before I forget, that audit, it is available already on our website, so anyone should be able to go online and be able to pull that up. If you have any questions or have any issues with it, just give me a call or email me and let me know, and I'll get that corrected, but it should be on there. Should be on there now. Exhibit B in your packet today, the Reconstitution Committee. This is a document that the committee I think this began with a previous committee where we began looking at what the recommendations were that came about from the Oconee and Anderson County Sewer Master Plan, which was completed and presented to the board by Weston and Sampson and Bolton and Mink back on July 1st, 2024. In that, there was a number of recommendations, and I won't go through this document and read all of those, but you should be able to go through and see each of these. A lot of these are beginning on page 2 and throughout the remainder of the document, and it's color-coded in there as well. So, and Catherine Amadon put this together for the Reconstitution Committee, but it also gives a status update as of October as to where we were with some of these items, whether it was incomplete, in progress, or complete, and there may be one that was kind of an other that was in there, and notes have been added to it to address these. The yellow highlights in there are what group or organization, be it the sewer authority, the member cities, and or the county, was to oversee the part of this document to see through and work through these each of these recommendations through to completion if anyone elected to take on the recommendations. That's all they were recommendations, nothing that mandated that any of these be completed. But again, this is here for you to look over, and if you have any questions as we move forward with the master plan, the recommendations, or anything to do with the new committee, please, of course, let me know.
All right, any questions for Chris? All right, moving on to item H. I see I jumped the gun on this one, Lynn. We've already approved the June and final fiscal year 2025 financial reports.
No, so that one has not been. So typically each.
You're talking about the ones that Lynn presented.
That's the one that was approved was the Secretary Treasurer's report that she gives every month. This is the one report that the 11 months out of the year, this goes to the F&A committee for their review and approval. But the final year-end report comes to the board for their consideration and approval. So that's what this is. And why it's this late typically is because Lynn has to wait for the adjustments from the auditor to add to it. So she received those last week, and those have been incorporated into this report. So that's what this is consideration and approval of this exhibit. What's that, exhibit C?
All right, are there any questions for Chris or Lynn related to these year-end financials?
These are all adjusted. This is adjusted based off of the data that was used for last year.
Yep.
I make a motion we approve this submitted since they've already been approved and accepted inside the financial statements.
Right.
I second that.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item H2, execute Adura contract for services amendment 2 for additional SCIP-funded collection system rehabilitation as part of OJRSA project 2024-08. Exhibit D, Chris Eliezer.
Exhibit D in your packet shows a short 2-page, 1 sheet of paper amendment to the contract that we have with Ardura regarding the collection system rehabilitation. And just to simply explain what this is this allows for Ardura, the engineering firm, to provide a full-time additional 20 hours per week of oversight for the rehabilitation project that is ongoing. And the reason why that all parties, us, the engineer, feel that it's important to have this additional oversight is because of the SSOs that we have encountered by the contractor and some of the additional issues that we've had as we move forward with this project that have, continued to creep up. So everyone has been in agreement that they did need more oversight. This is to be funded from withholdings from the progress payments for the work. So there should be no cost to the organization. We've been working, as Mr. Flynn is aware, we've been working with our construction contracts attorney, Brian Kelly, on this matter. He's been providing us with guidance, and that we certainly recommend approval of this amendment to the agreement.
All right, is there a motion?
I make a motion we approve the execution of the contract for services amendment.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions for Chris?
Just one quick question, the funding's already set in the budget, you want me to change anything?
We may have to amend it, but again, we'll have to.
So it's not an expected expense for this year's budget?
That's correct. If it's going to be an expense, it's going to be an identical revenue coming in as well, since it's going to be withholding it's going to be a wash.
Okay.
Any further questions, discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. Item number H3, request new appointee from Oconee County regarding the county representative to the Joint Reconstitution Ad Hoc Committee. Pre-approve and authorize the appointment of the recommended candidate. Lawrence Flynn.
So as y'all are aware, obviously there's been some changes at the county. The county administrator is no longer in her position, and so she was the appointed member to the ad hoc committee. And so we, knowing the work that the ad hoc committee is doing, the thought was, we don't really remember exactly how Ms. Brock got appointed originally, but the thought was, whoever the county wants to appoint as their member to the organization, I think we would validate and approve that. So if we go ahead and pre-authorize whomever that person happens to be, we don't have to reconvene as a board and potentially have to miss 2 consecutive meetings of the ad hoc committee. So we meet next Thursday, so it'd be really nice to be able to get someone teed up into that spot. And so the thought was, whoever they authorize, just pre-authorize it and move forward with it.
And was it you or you that was going to make contact with him?
I contacted and spoke with Chairman Durham last week, and we're going to try to get together and meet in the next week or so for me to bring him up to date, because I don't know exactly how much he knows about the process, but he mentioned that, and Mr. Hart knows this already, that county council, due to elections tomorrow, county council is not having their regular first meeting of the month tomorrow, so the next meeting they have, I think, is the 18th. Does that sound correct?
That's right.
So what I mentioned to him is possibly, if you and that committee so graciously allow them the same opportunity that we provided to Mayor Oliver, that if they have somebody that does show up, that they would be allowed to participate in that meeting until they do have a permanent appointment made by council. I did mention to him, and he does plan on putting it on the agenda for their consideration for their next meeting on the 18th.
Any thoughts, Lawrence, as to not having that meeting if the county doesn't have a representative there? 'Cause the reason I ask is because when we went through the master plan, we went through the ad hoc feasibility, all this was in one way or another to include the county, and I would
Sure.
and I, just based off my horrible memory that we were going to discuss about allocations of cost and a number of other considerations at this next meeting, I would really not like to disadvantage the county should they not have an opportunity to appoint someone to that committee. I'd rather either postpone or suspend it, just my thought. But Scott, Celia, any ideas or thoughts from you guys related to that?
I mean, I'm okay as Chris has suggested, that they have a representative there and be allowed to participate. But again, I'm fine with working group things. Instead of putting it off,
So still having the meeting?
I think so. I mean, we've got some timelines ahead of us. It's some pretty important work. I'd like to not put it off if we can. not put it off, and then just have a representative, you know, that you guys feel comfortable with, come to that one until an official appointment's been made.
If there's anything that might potentially bind you, we could delay it, but if necessary, but
I
still
agree.
made.
And you were still waiting on their action on the approval resolution or the consideration resolution. So I do think there's going to be a little bit of growing pains as, you know, they've lost their point of contact on the ad hoc committee. And so I think we just have to kind of agree that we'll do everything we can do to get them up to speed. But I tend to agree if we can just keep the process and keep moving forward, we'll just commit ourselves to making sure we make ourselves available.
But Mr. Chair, we can certainly, I mean, Mr. Hart, if he's got any input into that, what he would rather us do, I certainly would take that into consideration as well.
Mr. Hart, you got any thoughts for us on that? Don't want to put any pressure on you. If you don't, that's fine.
Yes, we're looking to have a civil engineer, a licensed civil engineer possibly represent us.
Okay. And you know that they're welcome to come as long as you tell us that that's who you're sending. We'll include them in the discussion next Thursday if we know that they're here on your behalf.
Next Thursday at 4,
At 9.
9, oh, in the morning, okay.
Yes.
November 13th at 9 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Any further
I
discussion?
think the only thing I would add is it's obviously a public meeting, so any members of the county that want to attend, I think you're more welcome to.
Yes. Okay, so is there a motion that we proceed with item H3? All right, we have two. Why don't we take Celia as the motioner and Scott as the seconder? And any further discussion or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. Moving on, item I1, Executive Director's Discussion and Compliance Matters, Chris Elliott.
All right, thank you. A few items I'm going to just address here. I'm just going to plow through them, but as I go through, if there's anyone that wants to stop and ask me questions, of course, feel free to do so. So the very first one, the environmental and regulatory compliance matters. We had a weekly ammonia exceedance earlier in October during the week of the 8th, and it was due to an issue we have with our internal recirculation pump. So by the time this was caught and the repair was made, we were able to get the levels down. And from what I understand from Kyle, since this is going to be over a weekly average, we barely missed being able to average it down below the threshold. So DES was notified. The local representative who we spoke to did not seem concerned at all because it was on a longer range with it being a weekly instead of a single one violation. So we do notify you about that.
Is that something that you're measuring here at the plant?
It is, yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is on, we do have a limit for it that is with our discharge monitoring report that we do have to submit. So that report will be submitted. We have until toward the end of the following month to get that in. So once we get all of our information back from the laboratory and internal, and Kyle's able to enter into the e-permitting system where we report that information to DES, it'll be submitted that way. So we'll find out if there's going to be anything that does come from them regarding that.
Does that come with any air quality concerns, odors,
No, sir, it doesn't.
chemical exposure into the air? or anything?
No, sir, it does not. I'm sure that.
All right, thank you.
I'm sure.
How is it monitored? Is it like a smoke detector that picks it up, or was it a human inspection?
No, it's I believe it's just done as a grab sample.
Okay.
So from my understanding, that's what it is, and it's not an air requirement so much as it is a liquid or in the water for the effluent. Then secondly, we did was mentioned earlier, we did receive all of the corrective action plan updates from all three of the cities. Allison is out today. She actually went to a compliance, I can't remember exactly what it was called, but a compliance attainment workshop that the Department of Environmental Services has put together. So back a number of years ago, and I'll turn back the clock a little bit, the state, back when it was DHEC and I used to work there, they were big into environmental, assistance and compliance, and with a focus of trying to have entities that were having difficulty obtaining or staying into compliance, trying to get them back into it and working with them. Then there was a shift away from that. Well, what I gather now with the new DES, since they separated from the old DHEC, is there may be a movement that's going back into that realm again to look at more proactive approaches into compliance attainment as opposed to just looking to be strictly an enforcement agency. That's my take on it. I can't speak on behalf of them, but from looking at what I've seen on the agenda, 'cause I would have loved to have gone to it today, but we had this meeting here. So hopefully she'll report back on that, but she'll also be reviewing those corrective action plan submittals along with our engineer and environmental counsel. And then if we have any questions, we'll let the cities know if we do have any questions or need any further information or clarification on anything. Number 2, Thornwell Target Development Update. So I was asked about this by a commissioner last week and was asked to make sure that I addressed it today, whether they did submit their application for the permit to discharge to the plant and pay their fees or did not. So they had until close of business on Friday afternoon to complete the application and pay their impact fees, and they did not do so. So with that said, a letter was sent to the Department of Environmental Services earlier this morning asking that they rescind the wastewater construction permit associated with the project by November 21st of 2025. So that's a matter that's out of our hands. It's issued by the Department of Environmental Services, but that's what our request is for them. I'll put Lawrence on the spot here to see if he has anything to add regarding that.
We've given them every opportunity to reach out and make it right, and not done.
Mm-hmm. So that's where that is right now.
They were given the opportunity to pay up before the increase July the 1st.
They've been given lots of grace.
Yeah, I have a full timeline where I've been documenting what all we've been trying to do to work with them since 2024.
And what is the value of that impact fee, Chris?
It's around $1.2 million, I believe. 1.1 to 1.2. And so that's item 2. Item 3, regional feasibility and reconstitution quarterly report number 1. This is just included in your packet for your information. So this was a document that Lynn and I put together that was submitted down to RIA with a quarterly update as to what's been done with the reconstitution committee as we were tasked by that committee to submit that report on the committee's behalf. So if there's any questions about any of that as we move forward, certainly let us know. But I think, things seem to be going pretty well. I think Ms. Ammons is fully aware of what all is going on up here, and she's going to certainly extend grace to us, I feel, as far as she knows that the spirit of cooperation is here, that not all items are within our ability to have complete control over. So I think they're still satisfied, or I should say, I have yet to hear that they are not satisfied with the direction. Number 4, peracetic acid and chlorine update. Well, here's the good news, is we did receive our NPDES permit. That went into our new one. That went into effect on Saturday, November 1st, and we did receive our permit to operate for the peracetic acid system. So what we're doing right now is we are dwindling down, using up our supply of chlorine gas. We have to maintain a certain amount on site here in the event that PAA is not available or we have an issue with the system, so that we can go back onto that for a short period of time. The threshold amount that we're going to maintain here is going to be less than the reportable quantity amount as stated by the EPA and DES. If they have a different one, I'm not sure. But the good news is that we will be out of having to do all of the documented work that we have with both the risk management plan and what's the other one? I can't think of the name of the other item that we have. But one's for the employees, it's OSHA required, and one, the risk management plan is for the public. PSM, process safety management requirements, is the OSHA one.
Will that limited quantity negate the need to do the mock drills and such that you guys used to have to perform as a result?
Yes, sir, it will. And we used to do a lot of that for our training, as well as Oconee County, I think, found it beneficial as well, to do it as well, too. But, we have staff here since, you may not know it, but the last 2 years, I didn't even know I could grow a beard. So I was always one of the ones that was certified to wear a respirator in the event that we had an issue, and, I had my own assigned respirator, to go down there and do change outs. And we have a couple of other staff that are as well. So as part of that, we have to go through the fit testing like someone would with the fire department. And we also have to have an annual physical. Well, I believe that does away with that requirement for us too. So the chlorine will be strictly as a backup supply. So everyone, as you saw Lynn's happy dance a minute ago, everybody I think feels that same way here. And number 5, miscellaneous, I have nothing in that category tonight. So any questions, comments on
I will
anything
say
I
this,
raised?
I know enough about masks from the service that if you have a beard with a mask on, you'd have done the kicking chicken.
Oh, yes.
For those of us who haven't seen that, is there?
It wasn't twitching, I'll say that.
All right, moving on. Chris, thank you very much. Moving on to item J, Commissioners' discussion. Is there any discussion or comments by the Commissioners? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item K, adjourn. I will entertain a motion.
Second to that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign, motion